Greetings and welcome to Political Empire. I'm your host, Kim Pearsall with the Press Enterprise and PE.com. We're going to talk about Paul Davis, councilman in Riverside, endorsing one of two candidates for Riverside's mayor. We'll tell you very soon who that is. And then we're going to talk about San Bernardino's bankruptcy because, of course, many things have been happening in that city's trials and tribulations as they move forward in Chapter 9 proceedings. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But first, Davis backs Bailey. Paul Davis has turned the other cheek and become the third member of Riverside City Council to back Riverside mayoral candidate Rusty Bailey in his race. Davis had recently been scolded by Bailey during a council meeting, which makes the endorsement that much more interesting. This gives each mayoral candidate 2 endorsements each from members currently on the council. Davis and Councilman Mike Gardner are in Rusty's camp, and Chris MacArthur and Steve Adams are on Ed Atkinson's side. Ron Loveridge, the tiebreaker as mayor on the city council, has endorsed Rusty Bailey. So we'll see how that all plays out in the actual election. Now on to San Bernardino's bankruptcy. They met last week to iron out details on how they plan to pay for fire department services and waste disposal. And here to tell us the latest on what is going on in the city, or perhaps what isn't going on, is our columnist Cassie McDuff. Cassie, thanks so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So quite a few issues popped up in the last meeting, and of course there have been marathon meetings as they go through their financial insolvency plan. Last week, fire department was a focus, as well as waste services. What happened on the waste services side?
Well, the controversial proposal to contract out the refuse department, it's always been owned by the city, run by city workers, resurfaced, and there was quite a bit of discussion. A consultant was brought in to review the request for proposals. The consultant pointed out several deficiencies and said there was a lot of information that's missing, so before you can really solicit good bids, you need to fill in those blanks. But the majority of the council wanted to push forward and once again voted to outsource or to seek proposals, and the mayor instantly vetoed the measure. So they made absolutely no progress on that issue.
And in terms of that proposal too, it sounds like there were 2 companies that may have been possible bidders for that. Was that part of the issue, that there were really only a couple companies that might be interested or qualified for this outsourcing, and they really weren't putting a wide enough RFP out there?
Well, the proposal would only really allow 2 franchisees, existing franchisees, who have material resource sorting centers, as recycling centers where the recycling gets sorted, within 12 miles of the city yards. That's where they have city maintenance and they gas up their vehicles. So for some reason the RFP was written so that only those 2 would qualify. I spoke to the consultant. He said that that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as those franchisees are doing a good job and they can come back with proposals that make sense. However, there are other people who are concerned that the process is not open enough. There isn't competitive bidding to get the city absolutely the best deal that it can get.
And as far as the fire department situation, so that was another discussion. They were going to talk about the budget going forward for the fire department because that had been excised from their pre-pendency plan. What happened?
Well, the fire department, the fire chief was asked to come back and craft sort of a compromise between a proposal that he had brought forward to save about $3.4 million and a proposal a city councilman, Chaz Kelly had brought forward to save about $2.9 million. The fire chief said that he reviewed those proposals. He eliminated the most controversial part of his proposal, which was to brown out 3 fire stations. In other words, close them 10 days a month each. These are the fire stations that get the fewest calls, as few as 2 to 4 per day. So the council absolutely rejected that proposal, the majority of the council. He came back and he found a way to save money but not close any fire stations. However, he did poke some holes in the proposal of Councilman Kelly and said that it really wouldn't save as much money as Kelly had said, only save about $1.9 million. And so after very little discussion, a few comments from the public, Councilman John Valdivia moved to table the matter, which means don't discuss it, don't act on it, just leave it. Immediately, Kelly seconded the motion, and the 4 majority council members voted to table. It was the end of the matter. Leaves the fire department with making no cuts, although the fire department had been asked to cut 30% of its budget, just like every other city department, to try to reduce the deficit before they go to bankruptcy court and try to show the judge we can manage our city budget, we can produce a balanced budget.
So two of the bigger issues, one was vetoed, the other one tabled until perhaps the next meeting, who knows. So what was accomplished at this last meeting?
Not much.
Well, Cassie, thanks so much for the update on what's going on in San Bernardino. I'm sure you'll be back to tell us more as this proceeds. And thank you for watching another edition of Political Empire. We'll see you tomorrow.